Hello, my name is Michael Garrick, and this is PoppinCulture. My guest today is Robert Taylor. He's a comedian and a veteran, also educator. One of the funniest comedians I know. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, man. Before we get into it, you're a comedian. Like I said, one of the funniest comedians I know. A lot of people talk about bombing, but I would love to hear the story about the first time you killed. When and where?
When I actually legitimately think I killed,
Yes, sir.
that was just 3 weeks ago in Myrtle Beach.
Nice.
That open mic competition.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, did I honestly felt like when I went back and watched the video for my version of killing, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Nice. Have you ever had that feeling before with anything you've done?
Yeah. Probably everything.
Nice.
I can't think of anything that I even stuff that I got to be pretty successful at that I didn't fail at first.
Nice. That's good to hear. Like I said, man, you've been putting in a lot of work. Like, your stuff is like very deep, very like on point. That's what I love about your comedy. Like, it's like if you know, like it's like you know so much about everything. That's why I was so excited to have you on my show, because when it's like somebody I want to go to for information, especially on a certain like event, it's like you know it, and that's why I'm so blessed to have you on the show. So thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to be here. Just touch on what you mentioned. That actually goes back to my Marine Corps days, because that's the number one thing they always talk about in the Marine Corps is attention to detail.
Okay.
And so, like, it doesn't matter if I come up with some idea for a joke or a bit. T. Link and I would talk about this all the time. I'll spend more time with the source.
Okay.
I almost can't even say it, with the source.
That's
The source than anything else. Just looking for words, trying to make the verbiage just right or whatever like that.
Okay. Nice. Well, that's good, man. That's good that you go the extra mile for your comedy. And like I said, you are a veteran of the Army and the Marines. And our topic that we'll be talking about is the military. But thank you so much for your service. Which branch did you like more, or you don't want to answer that?
No, I was in the Army National Guard first.
Okay.
And I was in there for about a little over a year, but I was working in a textile mill at the same time, because the Army National Guard is just part-time.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted to leave. I wanted to travel and stuff like that. And so I worked out a deal where I was able to get released, or actually honorably discharged from the Army National Guard, so I could join the Marines to travel. I like the Marines better because for a lot of different reasons, because I got to travel a lot and learn a lot of things like that. But it's just a different experience.
Nice. I'm digging a few things about the military before we get into the pop culture side of it. For anyone that grows up, let's say small town, because I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Winsboro.
I did too. 12,000 people.
Yep. We had around that number, I believe, in Winsboro.
Yeah, it's about the same size as where I
Yeah.
grew up.
And like I said, you don't have to answer this question because I don't want to get you in any trouble. Do you feel like the military targets small towns the most? Because I can remember
No, not really, because I was actually on recruiter's assistance duty
Okay.
one time during leave.
Yes, sir.
And it's just like a proportional thing. You know, they visit all high schools. They don't get any more people from rural areas than they get. They probably get more people from actually urban areas and city areas than they do rural areas.
Really?
Because there's more people there. There's more people to choose from.
True. Wow. Yeah,
Right?
you're right.
So, and if you're ever in the military, when you first get to boot camp, you notice the diversity of people from everywhere. Like when I was at Parris Island for Marine Corps boot camp, when you go to Parris Island in the Marine Corps, or when you go to boot camp in the Marine Corps, back then, you either went to San Diego boot camp, and that was if you lived west of the Mississippi.
Yes,
If
sir.
you lived east of the Mississippi, you went to Parris Island. So we'd had people all the way from, I know as far as Louisiana, west, and all the way up to Maine, Vermont, north, and Michigan and stuff like that. So you meet people from everywhere, and from different, for urban, rural, whatever like that.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much for answering that. Wow, yeah, you definitely answered that well because I always noticed that I thought they really target small towns because I didn't go into the military, but it was definitely a big option just because
Oh yeah,
I got to get out of here.
yeah. That was me.
Yeah. Okay.
But I didn't join out of high school.
Yes, sir.
That was the difference.
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. I remember you went to college first, and then you went to military.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about your business before we jump in? I don't want to skip over this. Is there anything you'd
This
like to
was
share?
This goes. I'll try to make it as simple as I can. I coach. I'm a professional triathlon coach too.
Yep.
And and it kind of blended in with my education, where I created a master's program in sport management about 16 years ago, and I used to market it all over the world. And one of the places I used to market at was Ironman Triathlon World Championship in Hawaii.
Okay.
And we would have a booth at the expo where we would hand out pamphlets and stuff like that for the online program. And I noticed everyone gave away free stuff with their logos on it, but they had these cool sayings. And anyway, I'm like, God, we got to come up with something. And one of the guys who I knew from San Diego when I lived there, he won the race 2 times. He's a legend in the sport. He said, yeah, you got to come up with something, man. And I just came up with this thing, PR or ER. And PR in endurance sports means personal record. And ER is emergency room, so it's personal record or emergency room.
Okay.
It's like all or none. And it was tongue-in-cheek. And I wrote it, I turned my white T-shirt inside out and wrote it with a permanent marker. I put PR, ER. And he's like, oh, man, that's pretty cool. And then he says, are you going to use that? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use it. He was going to steal it from me. And I came up with that. And I was just starting to coach a little bit at the same time. And I wanted to trademark it. So I ended up trademarking it. And people started to ask me, I had some T-shirts made. And people were like, oh, man, where'd you get that stuff? And they would stop to take pictures with me and stuff like that. And I ended up developing my own apparel line.
Nice.
I don't sell it anymore.
Okay.
I just give it to my athletes and people I know and stuff like that. But that's how it came about. But you can run into people all over the world at Ironman races, and they'll have my stuff on.
Nice. Can you tell them where they can, if they want you to train them, where would they go?
You go at pror.com or trisoto.com
All right,
online.
All right, guys. If that's what you're into, if that's what you want to do, say the website one more time, buddy.
It's www.pror.com or www.trisoto.com.
Oh man, thank you so much. And guys, if you're interested, please join. He's great. He's a great teacher.
Thanks.
Great trainer. Yes. All right. We'll jump into just ask you in a nutshell. In your opinion, how has the military influenced pop culture?
God, I mean, you can go all the way back to in the U.S. Well, when I think of pop culture, I think of like beliefs or ideas or behaviors, products, services that are embraced by the masses, right, at a given time. But in relation to media, like they're embraced through literature or art or entertainment, internet now, or whatever like that. So I guess if you're looking at it like that, it'd probably go back into like World War I or something. But in terms of the military, man, just something as simple as food in pop culture. I didn't know the specifics on this. I looked it up the other day. But items that you would probably never think of came from like Cheetos.
Okay.
Right. Oddly enough, if you notice when you eat boxed macaroni and cheese, you have the packet of the powder, the cheese powder.
Yes, sir.
The original cheese powder was created for the military to use on noodles and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
In their rations. And when they came back from overseas, they were trying to figure out ways to use it in pop culture or in culture. And they used to have like these corn, basically what a Cheeto is without the cheese on it. And somebody came up with the idea to put that cheese powder on it, and it's Cheetos, just like that. So that's what we eat as Cheetos today.
$1 million idea right in front of you.
More than $1 million, billions of dollars by now. But think about that. well, here's one. You may not eat this one, but Spam.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Spam.
Yeah, I love Spam.
Well, my son went to South Korea for a semester to study,
Oh, nice.
and he's a finicky eater. But he comes back home, and I'm going to the grocery store and I say, "Want to pick anything up?" He's like, "Pick some Spam up." I'm like, "What?" And like it's a big thing in South Korea because what happened was during the Korean War, the American troops were there and they had it in their rations and they would give it to the South Koreans, and now it's like I don't think it's a delicacy, but it's a big thing over there.
That makes a lot of
foods, technology.
Makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, I mean, did I get any simpler than this? Sliced bread.
Yeah.
Sliced bread, because they used to have the loaves.
Yes, sir.
And they would mold. And so they would put the preservatives in and slice it up so it would last longer.
It blew my mind that's still technically
How simple
new.
is that?
That's still like technically a new idea.
But it is, yeah. But it changed culture. Sliced bread did.
We were definitely born at the right time.
Yeah, and well, here's another one, especially today, is instant coffee.
You trust it?
Well, I don't drink coffee. I don't like coffee.
Okay.
But my mom, I've seen her drink instant coffee when she'd come to visit me because I never had coffee there, and she didn't want to have to go get coffee. She'd bring those little jars of Nescafe.
Okay. I know what that
I
is.
guess they still make it. Used to have commercials on TV.
I believe so.
Yeah, but even to this day, in the military, in your rations, you get a thing of instant coffee or cocoa or whatever like that.
You blew my mind on that. I mean, it makes so much sense that would come from the military, but like I just didn't expect that. Okay.
Well, also too, like technology. The first computers were developed right around World War II by the military.
Of course, yeah, I knew that.
But you saw how long it took for them to get into pop culture.
But those were the big ones, right? Like
but still, I mean, that's how everything evolved. Was from these huge computers down to,
those Doctor Who
to your desktop. Yeah,
the Doctor Who computers. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever they call those things.
Yeah.
God, what else did they? Here's one: the Jeep.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody drives the Jeeps around now. The military doesn't even use them anymore, but they were created for the military. The basic Jeep, like World War II.
Why they do away with them?
They use Humvees now. That's another one.
Yeah.
Humvees in pop culture.
Yeah. Okay. That's way better than the Jeep. That is a smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it is and it isn't. It is now in these technological times and stuff like that. And a lot of them are armor vehicles.
Yes, sir.
But the Jeep was really lightweight and it wasn't as technical. So if it broke down, it's just like if these cars today, you open the hood on a car and you look at it and you're like, oh, what? But I can remember when I was in high school and guys would take shop or whatever, we'd have a car, you could raise the hood on it and it looked like a lawnmower basically. I mean, it was probably pretty simple to work on. That's what Jeeps were.
Okay.
They'd break out and they were really, but if a Humvee breaks down,
that's it.
You're not going to fix it yourself. No. And I guess in terms of like the military influence in pop culture, this was really, actually in World War II also, but with movies, entertainment industry, you had a lot of movies that revolved around World War II, a lot of actors in there and stuff, especially the ones that couldn't be in the military. But Vietnam was music because I was growing up there, and I can remember around the early 70s, late 60s, all these songs that were anti-war.
Yes, sir.
Like Bob Dylan, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, even Jimi Hendrix. All these groups had their anti-war songs, and that's what drew the counterculture, or so-called hippies, or whatever people would call them.
I would love to ask you this question. We're going to get right back to military.
No,
only 2 minutes. Was Bob Dylan really the man? Like, I know I love his music, but like then, was he really that guy?
He still is, and it's not because
True.
he was a great singer. He could write.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's not the best singer. No.
If you go back and look at how many times songs have been covered, I think the Beatles songs have been covered more than anybody because they had a gazillion songs, right? But look at all the people who covered his songs when he was still doing them. Jimi Hendrix, all these people were covering his songs. And even today, I mean, when you hear people talk about his songs, hold up.
Yes, sir.
They're folksy or whatever, but his songs still hold up. The lyrics, do. I mean, you can't dance to them probably,
No.
but yeah.
Yeah, that was a life lesson for me because I grew up in a small town. So, like, first time I heard it, I think I was till like I was 14. I truly thought it was country. And then somebody introduced me to folk, and I was like, "What's folk?" And then when they broke it down, I was like, oh, "Okay, this is the difference." But yeah, like for the longest time, I was like, "Man, I really like that country singer," and they was like, "That's not country," and I was like, "Oh, okay."
But even now, if you just listen to the words, you would think that song was written today.
True, because
most of his songs, because they're about the same exact thing
yes, sir.
that he was singing about in the '60s. He was singing about civil rights. He was singing about war and all that same stuff, and. That song he wrote, "Blowing in the Wind."
Yes, sir.
When it came out, they tried to use it. The anti-war people tried to use it as a protest song, and he actually made statements in the media that says, "This is not a protest song.
Really?
I'm not. This was not written as a protest song." But I was reading this thing, and it actually said that became the #1 all-time protest song of the Vietnam War, right? And which was ironic because he said he didn't write it as a protest song.
Man, even if you just like not sing it, if you just read the lyrics,
yeah,
that
exactly.
sounds like a protest.
Yeah. But it could be now. It could be about what's going on in society now.
I would love to know what he was thinking when he actually wrote it. Like, money, of course, but just
a lot of it was enhanced.
True.
His writing at the time.
True.
Yeah.
I have a few quick questions for you, but not quick, but I have questions. I'm sorry. And if any of these questions are disrespectful, please let me know, and I won't.
Oh, man.
Okay. How close do you think they get to like real military when it comes to the movies and TV shows? Like, of course they had to dramatize it.
That's a good question.
How close do they actually get, in your opinion?
That's a good question because on YouTube there's a couple of veterans on there that have these sites or whatever, and they'll always say, I saw one or two on there where they're like, they'll have some war movie in there and say, how close is this to the real thing or something. Honestly, man, I would say the movie that I've seen that seems to be closest to actually replicating the military.
Yes, sir.
Would probably be, well, I would say the first half of the movie does. The other part I couldn't tell you because I wasn't in Vietnam or whatever. But as far as like real boot camp and real, would be Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
Because
That's a good movie too.
I'm telling you right now, they filmed that in a abandoned factory in London. But if you ever went to Paris Island for boot camp, you swear it was Paris Island.
Okay.
It looks just like. But R. Lee Ermey, who played the drill instructor on there, was a drill instructor in the Vietnam era.
Yes, sir.
And he was actually a consultant for the movie, and they ended up giving him the role because he knew more about it. So he's not playing a drill instructor in the movie. He's a drill instructor in the movie. So I thought that was probably the closest. But as far as like the combat and stuff like that, I couldn't tell you, man. I mean, Platoon is a really good one too.
Yes.
And if you've ever read the story on that of how Oliver Stone actually took him to the Philippines for a few weeks and made him go through boot camp in the Philippines, just to see what it felt like to be there. But I guess anybody would probably tell you there's nothing that could really replicate being in combat other than being in combat.
True. That's true.
It's like anything else, I guess.
True. To bounce off that question, in your opinion, when you see the words "based on a true story" as a when you see in a military movie it's based on a true story, if you had to go from 1% to 100%, how much do you like vary this as like, okay, this is how much do you think is based on a true story?
I guess it depends on the story, like whose it is. But I be honest with you, man, it doesn't matter even if it's someone's autobiography, right? They take liberties to enhance the story.
Oh, true.
You know,
very true.
So I mean, Gettysburg is a true story, but I guarantee you everything in that movie didn't really happen, you know, because how would you know?
Yes, sir.
So I would say, as far as like honestly too, there's an old saying, and this, you talk about influence in pop culture or history in general.
Yes, sir.
History is written by the winners, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you ask anyone from the U.S. that grew up here and took U.S. history and stuff like that, you would never even know the Soviet Union or Russia was in World War II, but more people died from Soviet Union in World War II than everyone else combined.
Very true.
Right, and the reason, honestly, that the experts have written that the Allies, U.S., Great Britain, and so forth, were able to win the war is because the Soviet Union kept Germany occupied on the other front the whole time. But you see it? Have you ever seen a movie in the U.S. about World War II that depicts the Soviets as having any significant role in World War II? Never.
No.
I'm sure if you're in the Soviet Union, you do. But,
of course. But
so history's written by the winner. So it depends on who's making the movie.
True.
You know?
That is 100%.
I mean, you saw Platoon, you saw Full Metal Jacket. I mean, we don't really give a lot of credence to the Vietnamese side of the story in those movies, right?
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
So
dropping gems. Thank you so much, man, for dropping gems on the podcast. That's very true. You're right. 100% right. So, in your opinion, when it comes to them telling like true events and real stories and real situations, do you think they ever reveal too many secrets, or they reveal something in the movie that's like, whoa, they should have kept that private for the military, like that shouldn't have been released?
Probably not. Because some of the movies that are really technical as far as the military, and they film, they have to get permission actually from the State Department.
Okay. That makes sense.
To film in certain places or to use certain information because it might not be declassified and stuff like that. Not all of them, because some of them get in trouble. But I know Oliver Stone was talking about one of his movies, and it may not have been a military movie. It could have been JFK or something like that. And he was saying that they wouldn't give him permission to use a certain something or whatever like that. So I guess, the only thing I could think of wasn't a military movie, but it was the Snowden movie.
Oh, yeah.
Where they basically said everything he said, which was classified information, when at the time, it may be declassified now because everybody knows it, but that was a military movie. But that's an example, I guess. I can't think of anything that they would give away in a military movie because it's history. It's already been done. Unless it was... Well, I could think of some things too because they assassinated people and things, political leaders and things that we weren't supposed to know about, but we found out after the fact. So I guess if it made it to the movie, everybody probably knew anyway.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just wondering if you ever watched the movie. You were just like, whoa, all right, why do we do that? Why?
When I was in the Marine Corps, that's actually what I did. I worked in. It was called the CMS vault, the ComSec Security Vault. I worked with classified material, and crypto gear and stuff like that. Yeah, and like, they don't play with that stuff, man.
I hope not.
There was only one way into the room. You either knew the combination or the people in there let you in. No one else could get in. We were in there, but like my job every day, Monday through Friday, was I didn't have to. A lot of guys didn't like it, but I didn't have to make any formations with the rest of the platoon. I didn't have to do physical training with them. I had to go to the main side communication center and pick up the message traffic and bring it back for the colonel every morning. That was my job. No one could mess with me. I just had a briefcase with the handcuff, and I had an armed driver to take me back.
You weren't armed?
Well, I was overseas, but at Camp Pendleton, when I was in California, I wasn't. Yeah, overseas, anytime I had to carry that, I was always armed. But I still had a armed driver. But the one thing was, if I was supposed to be somewhere, like if I went, like say we had Liberty on the weekend when you don't work, and I didn't show up on time Monday morning or something like that to pick that message traffic up, they would shut everything down because they would assume that there'd been a compromise. And this sounds like a far stretch, but this stuff happened back in the 80s and the 90s, maybe even 70s. Guys would defect from the military or try to sell secrets to the Russians, the Soviets at the time and stuff like that. It would be for almost pocket change for the time they did in prison. But that's why they had these measures was if you didn't show up, then they automatically assumed something was wrong. And they locked everyone down and they immediately inventoried everything to make sure nothing was missing. Then they start looking for you.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and then if everything turned out all right, fine. But you were going to get in trouble just because they had to do it. They'd
yeah,
be
of
mad.
course. Yeah, they weren't going to let that slide.
So there could be things in maybe some of those movies that they talk about, but they don't give it away. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
Yeah.
The depiction, like through pop culture, I can only say through movies, but you can tell me more history-wise. You have lived through 2 wars.
Vietnam. I think that Desert Storm, and I don't even know what was that. Desert Storm was one, and then the one after that, Afghanistan. Was that have a name? I don't even remember it had a name.
I'm not sure it has a name.
I think they separated them. Well, yeah, those are 2 major. They had a bunch of other stuff to go on. When I was in the Marines, like they had the Falklands that Great Britain was in. They had Panama when they took Noriega out.
Yes, sir.
I was on the USS Tarbell when they blew up the embassy in Beirut and the Indian Ocean. There was little stuff like that. You know, they had Bosnia, but I guess it's major wars or whatever. Even though they were never declared war, I don't think, or did Bush declare war, or Desert Storm, or whatever. I don't even know. But yeah, those major conflicts like Vietnam.
And the wars you've seen, has that affected pop culture at all? Or
Oh yeah, especially like I guess it was after Desert Storm. It was after 9/11. I mean, how many movies have we seen? Zero Dark 30. There was a string of those. Even ones that weren't specifically military, but they stemmed from the military, from terrorist acts and military. What was the one with George Clooney? Syriana. That was a really good movie. He wasn't military, though. I think he was CIA or something like that.
Even American Sniper.
Yeah, American Sniper, which was based on a true story.
Yeah, it was a lot of liberties.
But they embellished a lot of that in there because if you read the book or whatever, there's a lot of stuff that's not in there.
In the words of the director, I think he said, I might be misquoting a little bit, but he was like, I had to make an hour and 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Not only that, you have to add human interest stuff in there, love stories and all that stuff like that. Because the military part, to be honest with you, is boring, other than when they're just killing people. Most of the time in the military, you sit around. There's the old saying, hurry up and wait.
Okay.
Right? That's all you do is hurry up and wait in the military. Most of the time, you're not doing anything but cleaning your weapon or going through the motions. And that's one thing civilians don't understand, like especially about infantry units, and not just the Marines, but I'll tell you about the Marines, because I was in the most decorated combat infantry battalion in the Marine Corps.
Wow,
thank you. 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. But most of the time, when we were on base in garrison, they were either doing PT, physical training, they were cleaning their weapons, or I mean, it was boring, man. You know, and I'm sure what happens is, and then when we would go on ship, you just sit around on ship. It's not like now where they have internet, cell phone. There was none of that. They had a closed circuit TV. They had maybe like 3 channels you could watch, and VHS they would put in there. And guys would just sit, and they just sit out and simmer, you know, for weeks at a time. And then when they would finally, people don't understand that. And then when they would finally unleash them, especially with this stuff in the Gulf, they sit out on ship, and then they finally unleash them and let them go in. They're just they're just waiting, man. It's like, you know, and then they don't understand that. It's like what you see on TV with all the combat and all this stuff like that, that's not usually what's happening in the Marine Corps. You're usually doing a job. You usually have a regular job.
Of course,
Like Matt Addy, we were talking the other night. He was in what was called motor transport.
Okay.
Where it's the motor pool where they make sure all the vehicles are running, provide vehicles and stuff like that. I was in communications. You could be a cook. You could be all kinds of stuff, and that's what you do most of the time.
Yes, sir.
You know.
Okay. Thank you for shining light on that for me. You're a comedian. I've learned that there are a lot of prior military that are now comedians. You, Matt Addy, Big Mo Dixon, Marvin Hunter. Those are two other comedians. I just found out George Carlin was in the military.
Air Force.
Yes.
Well, he was actually court-martialed 3 times.
Yes. Oh, 3 times. Okay, I only read
Yeah,
once. Okay,
he
wow.
was court-martialed 3 times.
Wow.
So according to him.
Okay. How many before you have to go?
Well, that's what I'm saying, according to him.
Okay.
Because I've never known anybody that was court-martialed more than once, but you got to remember, he was in there in like the late 50s.
Oh, they needed people. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I don't think they did need people, so they would get rid of you if you, Jimi Hendrix was in the military.
Yes.
There's I could name a lot of actors that were just in the Marines. Steve McQueen, Lee Marvin, Gene Hackman. A long list goes down like Korean War and World War II.
Gary Owen also. I don't know if you know that he was in. Do you think by being in the military it helps you like focus more on your craft?
On anything, I can tell you this, man. Before I went in the Marine Corps, I didn't have any discipline.
Really?
For anything. No, I didn't have any discipline. I just did whatever. That's the one thing you'll learn in the Marines is discipline. You hear over and over, discipline is the key, discipline is the key, discipline is the key. When I came out, my number one goal was not to ever have to go back in the Marine Corps again. So my discipline was real good because I had motivation. I had motivation, man.
Okay.
I'm glad I went in.
Yes, sir.
But knowing what I know, I tell people the truth. I said, knowing what I know now, I'm glad I went in. But if I had to go back in again,
no way.
No way, man.
Okay.
Not like that. I would have done it differently. I would have gone to school and finished if I was gone back in as an officer.
Okay. Cool.
And different things like that. But I didn't want to have to go back in there, man, because it wasn't fun. I can tell you that.
That's what my girlfriend was telling me. She said she ever went in, she would have to go with her bachelor's. Like she couldn't go in there with her associate.
Well, even now, if you go in as a bachelor, you still could go in there enlisted now, because they have so many people going in with college degrees. But yeah, I got a lot out of it. And I got what I wanted was to travel. That was what I wanted to do. I traveled everywhere.
Nice.
When I lived at Camp Pendleton in California, I was somewhere every weekend. Every weekend I went somewhere. I'm talking about I went to the Olympics. I went to the US Festival. Anytime somebody said, hey, man, let's go do this, we were gone.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, man. That's good that you live life,
Yeah. So, like I said, knowing what I know, if I had to do it over again, I probably wouldn't do it the same way. But yeah, it gave me discipline. Especially when I got out, I just knew one thing it teaches you is how to break big things down into little parts, right? So when you come out of the Marine Corps, if you want to go back to school, you don't look at the school as being 4 years or 5 years. You look at it as being one class at a time, and it doesn't bother you if you look at it like that.
Okay.
You can break it down, and it works with sports, works with comedy. If you're thinking, oh man, I can't wait to get 20 minutes. I can't wait to get 30 minutes. All you should be thinking about is getting the next joke. That's all you need to think about is one joke at a time. But if you said every day what I try to do, and they might be horrible, but every day I try to write at least one joke.
Okay.
And some of them might just be, you look at it and say, oh, that's silly or what. But it's a joke, man. It makes my mind have to work.
It's one more than you had yesterday.
Yeah. And eventually, in comedy, they say usually about 1 out of every 10 jokes that you write are decent. So if I write them for 10 days, I have one joke at the end of 10 days, and when you think about it, if it's a decent joke,
you got it.
That's a lot of jokes, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of jokes at the end of a year.
Exactly. That's what I was going to get to.
If they're decent jokes.
Yes, sir.
But you have to be patient in comedy too, because you see this. How many guys you see right now? I'm not saying name anybody because I'm not going to, but you can think of them that they just started comedy not that long ago, and they're restless, and they think you got to get everything now, and I want to do this, I want to do that, and you're like, man, you just need to learn how to write.
Yeah.
There's actually a craft to it.
Yeah. Last thing you want to get somewhere and you're not ready.
Because it'll show. If you don't do the work with anything, if you find a shortcut, and people can find shortcuts in anything, what'll happen is in the long run, you'll be outed, right?
Yeah.
People will find out because you don't have the foundation on there. So the military, not just the Marine Corps, but the military in general, usually gives you the discipline to have the patience.
Yes, sir.
You know,
That makes very.
I mean,
very
come on,
much-
man. You're not going to be in comedy very long if you're not patient.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. And going back to what you said too before, when you asked me, have I ever failed at anything? If you're afraid to fail, you better find something else to do.
Yeah, that's almost anything.
Because,
though.
well, what did I just say? I think this is actually being on the high side. But if 1 out of every 10 jokes is good, that means you fail 90% of the time when you're writing jokes. Those aren't good odds, man. But if you understand it at the beginning and you say, okay, I'll take it, or whatever like that. But a lot of people don't, and they don't stay in it very long.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it definitely does show.
Oh, yeah.
Man, thank you so much, Rob, for sharing these gems with us, and thank you for explaining the military a little bit more. Definitely showing me what, like, from the food to the movies, like, it definitely has influenced pop culture to a great extent that I just did not know. But thank you for breaking that down for me, and coming on to the podcast. Is there anything you'd like to say to your fans?
I don't know if I have any. Nah, man. I just like to say for the people in the greater Midlands area, Columbia area, just try to support local comedy. I mean, we got a lot of things going on, open mics and a lot of showcases and some good comics coming up. And if you're interested yourself in getting involved, come out, and it's a pretty good community, pretty good supportive.
Well, do you have any place where they can find you on social media if they want to follow you?
Just Robert Taylor on Facebook or PRER.com.
All right. Thank you again for coming on to the podcast, and you guys have an amazing day.